You know what's wild about this conversation? Everybody at the table already has a reason why somehow this doesn't count.
That should be automatic disqualification.
You cannot say that with this president in office.
No.
For years, we were told that certain things were automatic disqualifiers until suddenly recently, they seem to have become negotiable.
I ain't gonna hate myself no more.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to yesterday's news channel. You know, the more I watched this segment, the less it felt like a political discussion, and the more it felt like people trying to talk themselves into something they already know doesn't fully make sense. I don't know how to describe it. There's an odd energy hanging over this entire conversation because nobody's defending their position cleanly. They're rationalizing it. And once you notice that distinction yourself, the whole panel starts sounding completely different. Anyway, let's see if I have a good read on this panel or if you view it differently. Let's go.
So, but that kind of raises this question of like, how much is enough, right?
Abby,
are we just going to go down the rabbit hole?
Well, no, the bar is in hell with this current administration. The bar is in hell. We have allowed this president to come in and this blatant corruption, and we see it. Not we as in you, but the people have, his loyalists have, the people who are supposed to be a part of his cabinet have. And so the bar is now in hell. And so for Democrats to me, now and by the way, I am not excusing this man's behavior in any form or fashion. But what Scott is saying is like, listen, look where we are. No one's perfect. Fetterman said this, to your point, said this earlier today. What he was trying, and I'm paraphrasing, was like, all politicians have baggage. This just happens to be a candidate that has baggage.
Carrie, he's got an anti-Semitic tattoo on his chest. That should be automatic disqualification.
I'm not excusing this man's behavior, but what I am telling you is you cannot say that with this president in office.
No, you can't.
You cannot say that.
You can.
You cannot say that.
A guy who's wearing a tattoo saying, I hate people of this religion.
Okay, and I hate black people. I feel like this president is saying, I hate black people, and we're done. Oh, no, but he just has all the power of the government. He's rolling back. He's rolling back civil rights.
Wait, Carrie. I mean,
I'm not excusing this man's behavior, but I'm saying this is why people are okay with that.
You keep saying you're not excusing him, but what's happening is that he is being excused. Because we kind of started with, oh, he was sending text messages, you know, into his, frankly, brand new marriage, by the way, to other women.
Wholly inappropriate.
So that's not great.
Wholly inappropriate.
Not great. Maybe not a great thing. But then there is always this drip, drip, drip. You know, earlier this week, he had a meeting with Democrats. It's not a secret. I've had a messy, complicated life. He told them that the worst of the rumors we've all heard are not true. 2 days later, the New York Times comes out with
that article about everything.
About everything. So it's like one of the problems is that you excuse this and this.
Are we excusing it? No, we're not. But if the people in Maine are saying this is our guy, this is who we want, it's because of the situation we live in right now.
Is there anything that Graham Plattner could do that would make him unacceptable?
I think, and maybe some things have already been exposed that are unacceptable. I think the thing is people don't know how to answer that question anymore because there's always a follow-up question. We just don't live in that world anymore. And I don't like that we don't, but is there anything Donald Trump can do to make him unacceptable?
No.
Yes, but he's still the president.
Yes.
So, like, what am I supposed to do with that? This Maine Senate seat has been something that Democrats have had their eye on for a very long time. It is more vulnerable than even the Texas Senate seat. And if they are looking at, this is straight politics. I'm not saying it's moral. I'm not saying it is clear. It is just literally a power play.
This is yesterday's news channel first, and I hate to do it, but I'll give Allison a little bit of credit here. At least at one point, she admits what this really is: power. That's what this all comes down to. This isn't morality, principles, no one's saving democracy. This is power. And for the people that get that, the conversation starts making way more sense. You're seeing that thing that Carrie Champion is doing throughout the segment, saying over and over, I can't even count how many times, I'm not excusing this, and then proceeds to explain why she is excusing him. I already complimented Allison, so we must be in bizarro CNN because Phillip sounds more like a journalist than every other liberal on the panel. I mean, you saw it. There's multiple moments there where you see Abby basically saying, okay, but is there anything this guy could do that would make Democrats reject him? And nobody answers it ever. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but just putting this all together, what they're doing is saying Donald Trump is such a threat that normal standards no longer apply. Because once the conversation becomes Donald Trump is such a threat that normal standards no longer apply, you can justify anything. And Carrie says the quiet part out loud. She basically argues that because she feels Donald Trump hates black people, because she feels he's rolling back civil rights, because she feels he represents this existential danger, then suddenly supporting somebody with a Nazi tattoo becomes politically understandable. Think about how insane that progression is, especially coming from the same political culture that spent years treating the word Nazi like the ultimate moral condemnation. We can't have short memories, guys. That was the word, the ultimate evil, the thing that was supposed to automatically end the conversation until it became politically inconvenient. Now it's, well, hold on a second. This is complicated. You know, Trump is really, really bad. And every one of these videos we watch is going to be loaded with hypocrisy. So it's not even that anymore. It's just how quickly the logic changes once power gets involved. I think the way to describe this segment is socially uncomfortable, because even the people defending this don't sound fully convinced by their own logic. That's why Abby acted like a journalist for once and kept pushing. If it was so ridiculous that Abby was pushing you, your position isn't that strong, let's be honest. Because deep down, or probably not even that deep down, everybody at that table understands what's happening. The standards are becoming completely conditional. Once standards become conditional, they stop being standards. Back to it.
2026. And so the fact that we don't know the vote totals in California 5 days after the primaries is objectively annoying for the candidates, for the public, for us as journalists. However, the fact remains that we knew that this was going to happen going into it. We knew that California has delayed results because of their mail-in ballot system, since votes postmarked on Election Day can still be counted. And in a state with 23 million registered voters, that requires a lot of time and a lot of resources and a lot of people. But for Donald Trump, who has a long history of voting by mail, it's proof that the system is rigged.
I hope the media looks at this election that's taking place in California, where they think it'll take 7 or 8 days to count the votes. They spend all that money on the big voting machines without any vote counting. The numbers dropped very precipitously for two Republicans that are doing well, that had been doing well.
There's no evidence of fraud or wrongdoing in that election, but it raises the question, is this just a preview of how Trump may try to undermine the midterms?
He likes to undermine election outcomes, whether they work in his favor or not. We know that there is no fraud happening in California. We also know that they should learn how to count their votes. But this is a pretext to what we can expect. And actually, after he lost with Joe Biden, there was a strategy for Republicans to go into urban areas that typically have voter suppression, have longer lines, have issues at some polling places, and really target those. After that, after 2 years in the next midterms, they actually started going into rural areas, putting pressure points on places to make everyone start to have questions about our election. And so there is no question about why he is actually doing this in California, to signal to Democrats who may be susceptible to this disinformation, but also to Republicans that, like, they don't get it right when it's their people and they don't get it right when our people. So nobody should trust
Nobody should trust any. He's been able to create so much chaos that you can't really understand what's going on. So to your point, yes.
But I mean, I have
sequel.
Sorry, friend.
I don't believe you.
I have no issue with them having someone from the DOJ just being an observer. I mean, in New York, it's usually someone from the NYPD. When the polls close, there's at least one police officer there who's observing like what's going on, and it's supposed to be they're there for. Really what they're there for is deterrence, but they're supposed to be making sure no fraud is being committed.
But I can't prove it, but everybody watching thinks there's shenanigans when it takes this long, and Pratt and Hilton keep losing.
If mail-in ballots are so cool and great and everyone uses them, why is it mostly Democrats?
And they absolutely have the capability to cheat. They have designed a system that is designed to cheat.
Oh, I can't prove it, but we know that there's fraud happening. Excuse me, you have to prove it.
It seems that Steve Hilton and Spencer Pratt have enough votes to maintain their position to go to the runoff. Now, maybe by some miraculous mail-in count, the Democrats will be able to catch them. It doesn't seem likely, at least when I've looked at the numbers. I always go to the polling place to vote because I don't want to take the risk of putting a ballot in the mail that could be lost by the Postal Service, that might not get run through the machine. I understand that there's observers and all of that. I just think the safest and most secure way to vote is to show up at a polling place. And I'd be supportive supportive of making Election Day a national holiday so people don't have to work, don't have to go to school. And I think that ultimately, you hit on this in your introduction, that it's not only annoying, but I think it also plays into these concerns about the integrity. The longer it drags on, even though we know that there's a lot of people, that millions of votes that still are outstanding in California, it's just raising doubts that I don't think are necessary.
Those doubts didn't, though, in the
They
mail-in
didn't
ballots.
exist.
They didn't exist
They
before.
don't just come out of the
yeah, they
water.
didn't exist
They're
before.
being created by
Yeah,
people who have
you
bad
have to do
intentions.
that. I appreciate
All
you,
right.
though, being solution-oriented.
That is true.
Yeah, I really
That's the
do.
best you're going to get out of her.
You know, the California conversation's interested in me kind of for the same reason as the first clip, because Abby did get something right. California has taken forever to count votes for years. What I think the media still doesn't fully understand is that regular people here, it's 2026 and we still might not know election results for over a week. Instinctively, they think, how is that freaking possible? I thought Rob did a good job and came across as one of the more reasonable people in this entire discussion. He came with solutions because his argument wasn't democracy is fake. His argument was as simple as it gets. Maybe voting in person on a national holiday would increase confidence in the process. The next thing I was going to say is everyone would agree with that, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm in a weird little bubble. I guess let me know in the comments, but I feel like that's a really reasonable compromise. But notice what happens now culturally, even talking about election confidence, even wanting people to trust the process, even saying maybe we should tighten things up so people feel better about it. Even that starts getting treated like some kind of dangerous thought. And I think you can just throw that on the pile as another reason as to why trust keeps collapsing everywhere. Not just in politics, but in institutions generally, because more and more people feel like transparency only matters when it helps one side politically. And as people start to feel that way, every conversation becomes cynical before it even starts. That's why both of these segments connected for me. The Maine conversation, the California conversation, they're both really about the same thing. People losing faith that anyone actually believes their own standards anymore. That's the real issue, not disagreement. Normalization. But what do you guys think? Do you think people actually still believe in standards politically anymore? Or do standards just change depending on who has power? And what was most disturbing to you about this clip? The hypocrisy or how quickly these snakes adapt once politics get involved? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to watch my video. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. I know your time's valuable, so it means a lot to me. Otherwise, always put God first, and I will see you guys hopefully. I know I've been slacking lately. Hopefully tomorrow, and I hope you guys had a good weekend.
Stupid like the truth, it's too hard to handle.